afternoon. I'm going to have everyone be quiet for a moment. Just want to welcome everyone. I hope that you've enjoyed your morning sessions and that you've had time to visit the exhibitor hall. We're beginning our lunch program now, and if you haven't already done so, although I don't see anyone standing, grab your plate and take a seat. For most of you in the room, you may know me, and for those who do not, I am LaShawn Burton-Falk, PCRG Board President, and we are going to begin our 2016 Summit Lunch Program. But before we get started, I'd like to make a few recognitions, and that would be first, I'd like to ask that the PCRG board members please stand to be recognized so that everyone in the room has an opportunity to meet them. I would like to thank the board team for your dedication and investment to PCRG's mission. The next recognition would be our 2016 Summit Planning Committee. Could the Planning Committee for the 2016 Summit please stand to be recognized? Can we give them all a round of applause and thank them for all the hard work that they've done during the summit? Everyone's been enjoying so far. When you see them, let them know. They've done a great job. We also have an army of student volunteers running around. They've got those little red lanyards that are around their neck. I'd like to thank all the volunteers for all that they're doing today. If we could give them a round of applause as well. Could we also have PCRG staff please stand to be recognized? I'd like to thank the team, not staff, I like the word team better, for all you do day in and day out. You are appreciated. And finally, I'd like to recognize Ernie Hogan. Please stand, Ernie. I would like to say that I am inspired by Ernie's drive and energy. I know that many of you in the room share that same thought. Your dedication, loyalty, and commitment to community and economic development are very visible. We thank you for all that you do and the impact that it makes in the lives of all the people in the room here. I would also like all of you to give yourselves a round of applause for all the hard work that you do, the partnerships, and everything that you bring to summits like this. So, round of applause, everyone. Next, it's my pleasure to introduce a longtime friend and ally of ours, Stephanie Cipriani of PNC Bank.
So I hope everybody is enjoying the summit. It's been great sessions, and I have enjoyed mine, and the networking is really, really wonderful. So I want to thank you for joining us for the 6th Annual PCRG Summit, The Power of Place. Through PNC sponsorship, we join PCRG in welcoming together many diverse voices to this summit. At PNC, our competitive advantage is that we know the role we play in our communities. Even as we have grown significantly over time, we've never lost sight of the relationships that matter. Relationships with our customers, our communities, our employees, and our stockholders. PNC helps to build stronger communities and create financial opportunities for individuals, families, and businesses through executive leadership, technical expertise, strategic investment, project financing, employee volunteerism, in collaboration and partnerships with community organizations such as yourselves and the government leadership. PNC has a community development banking group that helps boast the quality of life in low to moderate income neighborhoods through affordable housing, economic revitalization, and customized financial solutions in lending and investments. And I have a team of people here today, and I'd like them to stand. Dave, Laura, Nicole, Crystal, and of course our Managing Director, Kathy Niederberger. So would you stand so they... Thank you. At PNC, we understand the value of providing knowledge and skills to help people control the finances and improve their quality of life. We offer various financial programs. We have 17 different curriculums of home buying to Banking 101. We have a school bank program, foundation of checking, which will help people who had a problem with their checking account be able to have a second chance. We have individual deposit accounts and financial education courses. We have various mortgage products and home buying clubs, and we also have a grant program that assists people who want to buy a home. In closing, PNC realizes that we cannot be a strong bank in a weak community, and that is why everyone here is important to making sure our communities are strong. Our community's engagement will be defined by the way we work with each other to raise the quality of life for those around us. Collaboration and partnership will enable all of us to ensure that our communities are strong. I want to thank you for joining us today at this summit, and I have the opportunity to introduce our mayor, which I don't know where he's at. Mayor Peduto? Is he here? Okay. Okay. He's a mystery mayor. He's everywhere. So. Do we want to give you a joke? Oh, I'm not very good at jokes. You don't really want to do that. I usually forget the punchline. Well, do you want me to introduce Charles? Do you want to do the keynote speaker before the mayor? You tell me what you want to do. He'll be here in a minute? Okay. So is everybody enjoying themselves? Have you had a chance to network around the table and introduce yourself to everybody and find out what they're doing? Except for my team, it's all sitting together. Okay, so I was misled by Ernie again. The mayor. Okay. Do you want to move forward with the speaker and bring him in after? Okay, well, the introduction for Charles. So I will introduce the keynote speaker for lunch, and then if the mayor comes in, we'll let him speak before Charles, and then, or not, we'll have Charles come up and do his presentation. So I have the privilege of introducing Charles Montgomery. Charles is the author of the award-winning book, Happy City, which examines the intersection between urban design and emerging science and happiness. I will let you read more about Charles in the program book on page 31, but I cannot think of a better way to think about the power of place than through happiness. Please help me to welcome Charles Montgomery.
Okay, so I got this. The mayor will arrive soon. He's on the phone. So this is great. I have a little bit more time, so I'm not going to begin my presentation. What I'd like to do is lead you through a quick academic exercise before the mayor arrives. So let me collect my thoughts about this exercise. Okay, got them? And what I need to know is how many, put up your hands if you refuse to engage in a very quick social experiment. Please put, and that's fine if you want to. Put up your hands, please. One person over there. Okay, so you're not the mayor, are you? All right. Okay, so here we go. We need to be quick because we don't want to keep the mayor waiting. Number one, I need those of you who can stand, please stand. Great, and don't talk. So what I need you to do, and pay close attention to the instructions, otherwise it gets completely out of control. What I need you to do is locate somebody in the room who you don't already know. And I know this is Pittsburgh and you're all pals, and it's kind of weird that way, but you need to work a little harder here. So you will locate somebody in the room you don't know. Groups of 3 are fine. And go to that person. Say something nice to that person. Introduce yourselves. And then say something nice that happened to you in public space this week. But I'm only going to give you about 15, 20 seconds, so you need to move very swiftly. And if you're not able to move, or if you see somebody who can't get out of their chair, go to them. So you have 30 seconds, and I will stop you at 30 seconds. So you got it? Go. Gesture? I'm just going to ham it up, sure. I can gesture at them. Talk to each other. Talk.
You're right, they really do all know each other.
I know, it's terrible. Stop! 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 Stop talking! Don't move. Don't sit down. Ernie, is the mayor here? No, great. Then we can do part 2. So first of all, just a very quick check-in. Who actually spoke to someone they don't know? Put up your hand. Who cheated and talked to someone they knew? All right. So just a quick check-in then. Say if you feel worse now than you did a minute ago. Let's hear it. No. Okay, say, nah, if you feel just the same. Okay, say, yeah, if you feel better than you did a minute ago. That is so cool. And I'm going to explain the science behind some of this when I start to officially speak after the mayor speaks. But seeing as, is the mayor here yet? Okay, part 2. Mayor Peduto, if you are here, say yes. No, I'm speaking to the mayor. So you'll say yes to anything. Okay, stop. Pittsburgh, you're so into this, we're going to move to part 2. And part 2 I don't really discuss in the presentation, but I think it's significant and important. So you need to do as you're told here. You need to, Ernie, you're texting. See, that's really bad for sociability. So I need you to face that person. If there's groups of 3, you'll work it out. Now, make eye contact with that person, please. Don't talk. No more talking. Wait, you're talking. So maintain eye contact with that person. Got them? Now you need to start moving. Now no talking or groaning or noise making. Start moving together. Slowly, maintaining eye contact. And if you're uncomfortable, raise your hand and just stop moving. Now keep moving together. Keep going. Don't talk. Shh. Keep moving together. Keep going. Now I want you to keep moving until your noses and lips and up like that. Keep going. If your hand is not up, it means you're comfortable and you can keep going. Okay. Thank you. Sit down. All right. Stop talking. The talking portion is over. Thank you. So number one, just a quick check-in now. How many of you felt pretty uncomfortable at the end of the part 2 of the exercise? Yeah, I felt uncomfortable just watching you. So here's the thing, and it's such a treat because I'm not really going to address this part in my presentation. It feels good to engage with other people in the city, and it's good for us. All right? I'll talk about that. But there's this tension between the benefit from socializing, our need to socialize and connect with other people, and also our need to maintain privacy, maintain our personal space. And this plays out in the urban realm. So it's funny, I'm kind of hacking my talk here, but you can forget some of this. I'm not going to talk much about multifamily housing today, if at all. But here's what you do need to know. I'm going to talk about the disconnection on the ex-urban edge, which is real. It's reported. But the other place where people are reporting that some of the highest levels of social disconnection and low social trust are in residential towers, where people are amongst the least likely to know, trust, or do favors for their neighbors. So there's a lot of talk here in Pittsburgh and in other cities about creating dense, connected nodes that support transit, for example, and that provide affordable housing, and that meet many other needs. And I'm going to push for that, and we all should. But we need to be a little bit careful when we're talking about density, because towers work really well for some people, but they don't work well for everybody. And it's about that tension between our need to connect with each other and our need for private space. In fact, people in residential towers are the most likely to report feeling lonely and crowded at the very same time. Now, somebody was waving back there. Yeah, are you with the mayor? Okay. Because that's all I really wanted to say. I mean, I'm just filling up space here. Is the mayor here? Sorry? Oh, he's on the phone still. All right. And there he is. Oh, thank God. Okay, so seeing as I'm on stage, I'm going to introduce the mayor because, in fact, I've read so much about you, Mayor Peduto. I'm from Vancouver, Canada. And so you know what that means, what's going to happen right now, don't you?
No.
I got a hug.
Sorry about the Canucks. I know. That they have a good team. But anyways, Charles, it's an honor, actually, to be able to welcome you to Pittsburgh. I got to say, I have your book, Happy City. I haven't read it yet, but I've read the alternate version. It's called the Post-Gazette comment section. And it's the unhappy city. And so much going on. I mean, it's just remarkable. And it's great to see so many people packed in here. I wish I could have been here for the Land Trust v. Land Bank discussion. I don't think we've had that discussion ever before in the city. And it's a remarkable time to have it. You know, and I know that you talk about how we design cities and how we can plan for cities to be able to provide people with the ability to be happy, that a green space is not an amenity, it's a necessity. And we are at this position right now in this city that probably hasn't been around for about 100 years. And what we decide to do in the next decade will basically make the city that will be the city of tomorrow for another 100 years. So what's remarkable about it, everything starts to overlap. All the folks that are in here who are working on finding green solutions to our combined sewer overlay problem, those that are trying to fix what we did back in the 1950s when we built highways through our low-income neighborhoods, when we separated out people from opportunity, when we basically created a downtown, a north side, an East Liberty, and a hill for an automobile, when we built bridges and tunnels, and then we're surprised when people use them as driveways and left decline and created sprawl. All of these things overlay, and they overlay with the ability to use technology, the same ability that could use a sensor so someone can find what parking garage would have a space, could be the same technology to help someone who's homeless to find a bed. And it all creates this new urban idea that we can basically create cities by design for all. And so after 60 years of decline, after 20 years of really working hard to be able to say, we are the post-industrial example of how to properly manage decline, we now have a new challenge, growth. And we can see it in the building permits that are being issued. We can see it in the developments that are happening throughout this city. And with that new challenge comes both the challenge and the opportunity that we didn't even have 5 years ago. How do we keep Pittsburgh, Pittsburgh? And how do we make it a Pittsburgh for all? And that's what I am charging you. I know I got elected to do it, but it's a community-based process to be able to get it done, because nothing happens if one person says, this is what we're going to do. What happens is when we work together, we solve problems. We've done that in this town. We died in 1979. Our economic heart was ripped out, and we were left, and people said, you know what, cities have lives, and Pittsburgh has died. It was a great city, and it will be remembered for being a great city, but we're back because we worked together collectively to solve those problems of the economy, of pollution, and now we have the opportunity to rebuild the heart, the city, and to rebuild it in a way that meets those two critical challenges, keeping Pittsburgh, Pittsburgh, and building a Pittsburgh for all. So that has to be done through design, because if you don't bake it in at the beginning, you're never going to be able to solve it after you're done. And that's where this whole conversation comes back. How do you design that city? Because if you design it and you're able to meet those two goals, you will have a happy city. You'll have to put in a lot of other things in it as well, and I'm sure that you'll be telling us about those. But we have a new set of challenges before us. And for those that have weathered the storm of the 80s and the 90s and have seen the promise of what this city can be, we have an incredible opportunity, not a challenge, and we must seize it. So thank you, and welcome to Pittsburgh, my friend. That was the introduction. Yeah.
Okay. It's like a dance here.
I know. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Okay, just calm down a bit. I got to meet the mayor of Pittsburgh. No, I am super jazzed because, and also somewhat uncomfortable, as I mentioned to your to the board last night. The world has so much to learn from what you are doing now in Pittsburgh that I feel like I'm going to leave here having learned much more than I contribute. Having said that, I'm going to talk for a little bit, though. Part of my message, I hope you feel resonates with you, because what I'm here to tell you is that the work you're doing, not just the physical work, but the coming together to work together on these problems, it's everything. It's everything. It's incredibly powerful, and it matters for happiness. And I'd like to explain why happiness as a concept itself matters for cities. And I'm going to do that by way of some evidence, but also some stories, okay? So here we go. A couple of years ago, I was invited by the Guggenheim Museum to work on a kind of a ephemeral laboratory in New York City. We had 3 months to transform a lot in the Lower East Side, and they kept calling it a lab, and we had all this money from a car company. So I said, well, if it's a lab, then I get to conduct experiments. And we did, and I'll describe some of them later. I'm going to start with one tiny little happening. So the car company paid for parties because they wanted to sell cars. And at one of these parties, we had a couple hundred people in a room, and I was very curious to see if we could change the way those people felt about each other. So one by one, we drew people out of the crowd and said, hey, we'd like to get your picture. And once we pulled them aside, we'd say, well, actually, there's a little twist here. We're getting your picture taken with a complete stranger. And what you need to do is introduce yourselves, say something nice about each other. Sounds a bit familiar, right? And then you need to pretend you're old friends being reunited after many years. And they really got into it. I mean, I was kind of shocked. So I'm from a small town on the west coast of Canada. And, you know, I don't think of New Yorkers as super friendly, but maybe these weren't New Yorkers, I don't know. They were super huggy, and everybody was having a great time. And, of course, I could have predicted this, because I've read the peer-reviewed research, and I know what happens every time we have a trust-building encounter. We get a hit of this. Anybody who's given birth in the room, that would be mostly women, I think, you've received well, times are changing. You received a hit of this. This is oxytocin, right? It's the warm, fuzzy trust hormone. Well, anytime any of us has a trust-building encounter, we get a hit of this. It makes us feel good, warm, fuzzy, and it makes us more likely to trust people in the future. something else happened on that night, and I want to get back to that, something I think very profound and instructive. Before I do, let me just back off and give you a broader picture. How did I come to this point of bizarre experiments? Well, I've been working for almost a decade, which is a really great way to be poor, by the way, on this book called Happy City. And at the time, I had just become convinced by my travels around the world and by looking at evidence from peer-reviewed research that indeed our cities, they change the way we feel, they change the way we move, and they change the way we treat other people in ways most of us don't even imagine. And so we need to do everything we can, as your mayor said, to repair the damage we did in the last century and to build new, happier, healthier places. Okay, so that's my thesis. Cities should build happiness. If you disagree with that, then talk to Aristotle, or I can duke it out with you in the hallway afterwards. I'm not going to try and justify happiness, although I will provide some evidence as to why this is good for your cities. Of course, the question is, if you want to build happiness into a city, first of all, you have to decide what you mean by happiness. And this has actually been a real struggle, right? I mean, for the last couple of hundred years, we've been relying on economists to tell us what happiness is as a societal goal, right? They got it figured out. Here's the latest thinking in economics. It's not what you think, actually. So for a couple of hundred years, they said, you know what, you can't measure happiness, so let's just say GDP equals happiness. So divorce, hurricanes, earthquakes, all these things are really great for happiness because they increase growth. Anyway, this is the latest thinking in economics by Gary Becker, Nobel Prize-winning economist. So can anybody interpret this for me in one sentence? Okay, good. So I can pick on the economists all afternoon. It means you're going to try and get happy by getting lots of stuff and increasing your social status, and that's totally going to work until it stops working, and that's going to take a couple of months. And then you go back to your set point and you find another horizon of happiness. But this is, of course, the happiness equation that is related to acquisition and status. It's not holistic. And the economists, they like to think they know how the world works, but not many of them have actually looked for evidence inside the human brain and body. But that's beginning. And so when we tried to build a usable framework for looking at urban happiness, let me just show you what we drew from. So we're drawing from public health, we're drawing from psychology, from neuroscience, and neuroscience really does matter. For example, people who self-report being happier actually have higher levels of activity in the pleasure centers of their brains and lower levels of stress hormones coursing through their veins. So, i.e., they're telling the truth. We can learn from those things. You can correlate them to societal and environmental conditions, and that's exactly what the behavioral economists are now doing. We're learning from sociology. We're learning from other disciplines, and by that I mean we're learning from the arts, from experimental arts. We're learning from urban activism, people who go out and do things and change places and watch how the results change feelings, emotions, and sociability in communities, i.e., you. So what matters most to happiness? I'd like to offer you the recipe for human urban happiness, but I don't have time, so I'm only going to give you one ingredient, and this is the one that matters more than any other. And you probably got a bit of a hint before the mayor showed up in our little exercise. Nothing matters more than, well, I'm going to let my mom do the talking. So this is my mom in the middle. She's surrounded by people on her 88th birthday party. These are all her neighbors. And they had a tea party. I can assure you they were not drinking tea. I don't know why they're not smiling more. Anyway, my mom is the perfect example, 88 years old. What kept her strong in her life? Social connections. Tight ones, loose ones. People who are socially connected, they get sick less often. They're more likely to survive cancer. They're more productive at work. Their communities are more resilient. And they live, on average, 15 years longer than people who are socially disconnected. Yay, Mom. So the thing that we don't acknowledge enough, though, is that our relationships, yes, with family and friend do matter, but our relationships matter. The relationships we have with everyone else in the city matter just as much. So when psychologists send their slaves or grad students out to measure how people behave in public and in cities, they're finding that people who have more contact, superficial contact with strangers and familiars in the city report being just as happy at the end of the day as people who spend a lot of time with family and friends. And this also falls true for people who self-report as introverts. Those little bits of contact, opening doors, winks, flirtations, getting a coffee from the barista, whatever, these really matter. So this plays out in economics as well. There's a strong correlation between GDP growth, creativity, as judged by patent applications, and the ability for people to meet face-to-face in the city. The internet isn't good enough. Tweeting isn't good enough. So if you look at this on a national level, I'm Canadian, so I'm going to fall back to my own national data. So here's a correlation between self-reported life satisfaction and trust in neighbors in Canadian cities. And if you don't know Canada well, what you need to know is that St. John is a poor little outpost in the Maritimes. And our big, rich cities, Vancouver, Toronto, Calgary, are down at the bottom of both trust and happiness. So what this may make you suggest is that, oh, well, maybe money doesn't matter. Maybe money's not so important. And you'd be wrong. Money really matters. It's much better to be rich than poor. It's just that the social element, the trust element, overwhelms financial effects in producing life satisfaction. I want to add one more thing, and this really matters for Pittsburgh. I don't need to tell you this. This comes from my mentor, Enrique Peñalosa, the once and now current mayor of Bogota, Colombia. He used his first term to build happiness in his city, and his method was unscientific. He went with his gut, and his gut said this, that if we don't build a city for everybody, a city where everybody is included, we will have failed. Now, he sounds a bit like one of those South American socialists, right? The guy wrote a book called Capitalism, the Right Answer. So he's not talking about necessarily changing the economic system, although he probably should. But what he's suggesting is, who is included in your urban project? Who has access to the riches of the city? It should be everyone. And when everyone is included, the city as a whole does better. I'm going to come back to Enrique in a minute. So just so you know, the definition of urban happiness, there's about 7 ingredients. They're all in the book. But if you're thinking about sociability, we're talking about social trust, social relationships, and social inclusion and status. So our cities are designing our social lives. This is the thing. We all think we're in charge of our own lives. We all think if we just go to enough therapy, we'll be happy. It's not going to work for everybody. Here's some evidence. We know there's a strong, strong correlation between the length of a commute, driving alone in a car, and self-reported happiness. People with long commutes are just less happy with their entire lives. So what's going on here? What is it about commuting that makes us so unhappy? Well, I'm holding up a mirror right now, right? This is all of us. So people are reporting more rudeness and incivility when they're driving than any other way of getting around the city, including on transit, right? People are nicer on transit than when they're driving. But that's really not the big picture. It's a system effect that's going on here. So, okay, I think we started a bit late. I can give you the long, complicated explanation for this, which uses words like space-time continuum, or I can just tell you what it means. Who wants me to just tell you what it means? Thank you. Big clap. Okay. Geographers have studied sociability and social connections in American cities. They punched in a ton of data, and they came up with a really obvious conclusion. The biggest factor limiting the ability for Americans to connect in their cities is what they call dispersal, or the degree to which the functions of the city were spread out, just like you've been doing for the past 70, 80 years. We've been building machines for disconnection. So it's important to look at the system effects. Let's do this. And I don't want to pick on Pittsburgh, so let's pick on Atlanta. We've got 2 different urban systems here, right? System on the left, this is out in Mableton, and that form will be familiar to you. Auto-dependent, dispersed single use. And if you try to get from one spot to the other, Google gives you a message saying, there's no sidewalks, so don't bother walking, right? Kind of like Penn Hills. I'm surprised you're laughing. For me, it's a tragic thing. I'm not mad at you, but come on. Let's look at Midtown Atlanta, right? Not downtown, Midtown, mixed use, connected street grid, lots going on. You got your parks. You can walk to anything you could possibly imagine, and transit. What are the system effects of these 2 systems? All right. On the left, you can emit 2 times as much greenhouse gas. We really wish you Americans would start caring about this. We're into the 8th hottest month on record in the hottest, after the hottest couple of years on record. And I can say that now because as of last year, we now care in Canada. So we're 6 months ahead of you. Okay, back to tragedy. You're going to spend twice as much just getting around. So this is a middle class problem, but it's an American tragedy when you're looking at vulnerable people. So look at the dispersal of HUD properties around Pittsburgh. And they did an analysis, Reed Ewing and Shira Hamidi, and what they found was that if you're looking at the transportation costs associated with your housing opportunities, 80%, so the purple dots, or reddish purple dots, are HUD properties where people are spending more than 15% of their income on transportation, okay, i.e. unaffordable. And basically 80% of your HUD properties in this city are making people poorer by raising their transportation costs and stealing opportunities from them. It's got to stop. Okay. Okay, you're going to weigh 10 pounds more because you can't walk to anything. You're going to die 3 to 5 years sooner because of the system effects of disconnection. But none of those were the reasons I came to talk, actually. Remember, I was talking about sociability. People on the ex-urban edge are reporting to be the least likely to know and trust their neighbors, to invite neighbors over for dinner, to volunteer, to play team sports, or to vote than any other Americans, except some of those who live in towers, which I explained before, but we're not going to talk about towers. So the effects of dispersal, they're seeping into people's lives. People who have more than I know this is some of you, 40-minute commute, couples, are 45% more likely to be divorced after 10 years. The distance is taking a toll on your personal life. So that's bad. I'm going to skip some of this because Ed McMahon went through some of the future projections. I'm just going to say, millennials, we all know what they want. They want close, connected communities. They want close, connected places to work, and we better start building those or goodbye. Elders, this is from a study in Italy, in Milan. This is the most stereotypical Italian shot you could get, right? The market and some guy lasciviously eyeing the girl on her bike. But this study is not about him. It looked particularly at women of all ages, but also, I guess, adults between 50 and 64. And they found when they lived closer to transit and when they lived in denser neighborhoods, connected neighborhoods, they were using fewer antidepressants. And you're seeing this data coming from all over, right? So these are happier places, connected. Pittsburgh, you know this. I mean, you've been talking about it, and you've been doing it. Is reinvesting in your downtown, in your close connected neighborhoods, building transit-oriented development so that people don't have to drive forever or depend on cars or have their time and power stolen by distance. So great, good for you. And I would end there, except I'm only halfway through, and I just think it's curious. Even when we get it, even when we get the change in the systems we need to create, sometimes we get the details wrong. And this really was curious to me as we were doing our research in New York City. So I want to show you some of the experiments we did. So we know we need to build close connected spaces, but what should they look like? How should they feel? How do they feel once we built them? I worked with a neuroscientist named Colin Ellard. The car company gave us a ton of money. So of course we could fly Colin down with all his gadgets to create an emotional tour of the Lower East Side. I'm not going to show you what those lines mean, but they look cool, right? Important to talk about the tools he used. So Colin used this really advanced Canadian technology known as a BlackBerry. I own shares, okay? To take a subjective response from people, right? How happy or sad do you feel right now? But he also used skin conductance monitors. And these measured people's level of arousal as they move through the community. Thanks for not laughing there. That would be childish. It's not sexual arousal. Some people do laugh, and we have to have a lecture about that. Okay, we learned a lot of interesting things. I just want to share one of them with you. people self-reported being much more happy here in front of this jumbled up, gritty, old tenement block than they did here in front of this award-winning new mixed-use block with a grocery store, Whole Foods on the ground floor. So what's going on here? What accounts for this? Well, over here, there's so much going on to slow people down. Small shops, services, reasons to stop. People claim to like that. Here, well, nothing. You've got frosted glass the entire length of a block and a door on either end. And Jan Gehl, the Danish architect, who I understand has been hanging out here in Pittsburgh, found that people actually walk faster in this environment. They're less likely to stop and make a cell phone call. Canadian research shows that older adults get older and they die sooner when they live in these places because there are fewer destinations for them to walk to. So it's a happiness thing, but you could also say it's a human rights issue because everybody should have the right to access stuff in the city. Okay, so this was interesting to me, but I thought, we feel differently in these places, but maybe they could change the way we treat other people. So we went to Seattle to work with FutureWise, and they have a whole bunch of volunteers. And we said, well, maybe we could test different street edge typologies. So we surveyed landscapes in one neighborhood. We were looking for blank edges, kind of like the Whole Foods one. This is a warehouse, but others were very blank, frosted glass, versus the small-scale, fine-grained environment. Just the kind of place that Ed McMahon told you this morning promote more diversity in business ownership, local business, money staying in the community. Okay? I think you know where this is going. So then we sent out the volunteers, and their job was to pretend to be stupid lost tourists, kind of like me in Pittsburgh. So looking at the map, like, please rob me. And I don't think people rob each other here, but it's just, that's the tourist thing. So here she is doing her lost tourist, and what we found was really remarkable, is that people in the, along the fine-grained environments, pedestrian passersby were much more helpful. They were 4 times as likely to stop and offer to help our lost tourists. They were 7 times as likely when she's like, oh, can I borrow your phone, to give her their phone. 4 times as likely to guide her where she needed to go. And guess which place, guess where she was standing when she actually got a date. So these environments are changing how we treat each other. We think the effect is a velocity effect, actually. When we slow down, we're just nicer to each other. Okay, so we know which kinds of environments are bad. We've been building them for decades. This is a new Allegheny, I think. Nice. What? Yes, that's it. Thank you. So bad. We also know that, Ed, are you here? Okay, so Ed showed some great examples of mixed-use big boxes going into the urban environment. The problem is so many of these are killing street edges. Just because it's retail doesn't mean it's active. So that's bad. We know also that people are reporting the more parking you have in front of your retail and other businesses, the lower their sense of community and neighborliness. So again, we need to watch out for that. You already know how to build it right. They did it a century ago. We just need to look back a little bit. I call it Germantown. You call it Deutschtown. Okay, Deutschtown. You already know how to do it. So the question is, can we relearn how to do it? And can we do it while building the economy and offering opportunities for national retailers? Well, the answer is, yeah, but you've got to try really hard. So here in my city, Vancouver, a developer came in, Grosvenor, international developer, and they said, hey, we really want to build a Home Depot beside your city hall. And our planning department said, that sounds awesome. We want your Home Depot, but you need to put it up on the 2nd floor, and then you can put some apartments on top of that. Maybe, actually, there's another big box on top of that, and apartments on top of that, and there's a green roof on top of that, and it's Vancouver, right? So they're growing dope up there now, I think. But the key is that they demanded an active street edge. You have 9 openings along the street edge here, small local businesses, some of them, right? So what this means is now we have a street edge that's more social, it's healthier, it's an easier, more fun place to be, and if our research is right, it might actually be a kinder place. So we thought that was pretty cool. Coming back to the really serious element, though, remember the heat wave of, was it 86 or 96, when 700 people died in Chicago in the course of 3 days? Epidemiologists learned a lot during those 3 days and looking back at what happened. The key factor that all the dead had in common was poor social networks. They were alone. But then when they looked at neighborhood fabric and structure, they found that people were 10 times less likely to die if they lived in a neighborhood that hadn't been ripped apart by the modernists, i.e. that still had fine-grained opportunities, because it meant that mostly older people were still getting out and they knew people who would help them. Okay? Before I come back to New York City, I want to come back to this issue of equity, and I'm talking specifically about feelings, right? Feelings of being included. We're talking about social status, and this is something that I mentioned Enrique Peñalosa really pitched hard. And I want to talk about the evidence, but I'm not. It's just so complicated. Those are mice brains. So I'm going to just skip forward to Enrique. It's important to note, though, what this evidence means is that social status matters. If you're low in social status, it actually makes it harder for you to reconnect with the rest of your community. Your brain shuts off. So it's a double form of exclusion. Okay, but back to, well, we're not going to Enrique yet. Here's a low social status machine. All these people, I was wondering, why are these people hanging out in this really crappy place? Like, what are they doing there? This was last year. No, they're waiting because it's a bus stop, right? So it's a bus stop designed to make people feel crappy about themselves. Way to go, Pittsburgh. Anyway, so, yeah, I know it's not your fault, right? It's the transit agency. So, okay, back to Enrique. It's been a couple of decades since his term, but it's important to touch on it. Enrique, his idea was that the happy city is an inclusive city, and an inclusive city can be better for everybody. And this is how it played out. Instead of pouring $6 billion into a new freeway plan for the city, where only a quarter of households actually own cars, they poured their money into schools, daycares, parks, libraries in the poorest parts of the city. They did things like creating the Transmilenio. I know you have a busway here. The Transmilenio was a high-status piece of transit infrastructure. So poor people could cross the city faster than rich people, but they could do so in a high-status way. So remember that bus stop over on the North Shore there. Compare that to this. It's like an airport waiting lounge. This is a Transmilenio stop in Bogota. It creates a different sense of the status of the transit commuter. And honestly, transit commuters should have the highest status, shouldn't they? Because they are walkers. They are the lifeblood of the city. So what they learned in Bogota, though, is through this egalitarian transit scheme, so many people started taking the Transmilenio that even rich people got to work quicker because they reduced congestion on the roads. It's happening all over the world. You made a start, and you got to keep going, and enough with the disinvestment in transit here. Okay. Yes. It's so funny, you started to clap, and then you saw this, and you're like, no, that can't be true. Okay, so, so people who take transit are reporting less satisfaction with their journey than any other commuters out there. And no wonder, due to the disinvestment in North America and other countries for decades. However, in the UK, when they actually measured the change in people's life satisfaction over a course of years, they found that people who switched from driving alone to transit, actually walking, biking, or transit, but also transit, reported being happier with life. So even though they don't like the journey so much, they said, oh, life is getting better. Why is that? It's very simple. It's that every transit ride is actually a walk and a transit ride and another walk. And it's a walk people aren't getting when they're driving. So walking is making people happier. What this should tell us in planning, then, is that, yeah, build your robust transit network, but ensure that you do what London did historically, which is you pop out of transit and you're in a beautiful, connected neighborhood with many opportunities and it's safe to walk. And not what Dallas did when they made a historical investment in light rail. And when they rolled out their light rail network, very dispersed, transit ridership went down because they were sucking energy from the rest of the neighborhood. And can you walk to this? No. So watch out. How are we doing for time? Do I have 10 minutes left or 5 minutes left? Okay, we're going to go for another half hour. I'm kidding. Okay, so Do you know how people like to show in planning gatherings, these horrible graphs of pedestrian deaths? Cars go fast, pedestrians die, and it is horrible. I hate it, but we already know that. I'm really interested in how wide, fast roads make people feel. So we did a test in New York City. Again, Colin brought out the skin conductance monitors, and we sent people walking across East Houston Street. That looks like something you might find here. And so there's the skin conductance monitors. And here's what happens. People get to the street edge, and your level of arousal spikes even before you start walking. Just looking at the street, imagining crossing is a scary thing. So this has social implications, right? It means that some people are never going to cross the street because they just aren't brave enough or fast enough. And it's true on many American streets. It means that sociability goes down. On wide streets with lots of traffic, you're seeing fewer neighborhood social connections. People are even leaving the house less. So this is Allegheny Centra. I mean, this kid was looking up going like, are you serious? We have to cross here? You have this freeway-grade infrastructure all through your city. I kind of hate it when people giving talks bring up Europe. Like, we got to be like Europe. Well, guess what? Europe wasn't like Europe very long ago. Europe started acting more like Europe in only the last couple of decades. So in Vienna, for example, they've got a 30 kilometer an hour, so that's about 18 mile an hour speed limit on all their local streets. I can jog faster than that. So what it means is people are comfortable, people can move easily. And when I mean people, I don't just mean middle-aged dudes like me. I mean her. I mean children. You have this talk about equity here in Pittsburgh, and you see it through the lens of income, you see it through the lens of color, you must also see it through the lens of age. Are your children free to move through your neighborhoods? Are your elders free to move around? Now, we've ticked off most of the population. Okay, value proposition. I don't need to do that. Everything Ed said this morning. I had a big deck, but I'm like, oh, that. I mean, Ed's right. And there is we were supposed to go to New Liberty together, and I think he's taken off. Okay, anyway, Ed made this point about attracting business and attracting opportunities. And what we found in our research is that everything you do to build more happiness, health, and sociability in your community, it's also going to lower your long-term tax burden. It's also going to lower your health care costs. It's also going to attract business and attract spending, blah, blah, blah. It goes on and on and on. So yes, whatever Ed said, same thing, same message. But it was important for me to pull out those slides, actually, so I could come back to, I think, what I feel is a much more, an equally profound point, is that when we do this work together with our communities, we change ourselves. So I typically see this happening in communities that have given up waiting for government to fix things for them. And I think, I'm Canadian, we think government should help fix things. But in communities where government doesn't have the capacity or has given up, people do it themselves, and it's really remarkable what happens. In Granby Park in Dublin, this lot sat empty for decades until a local artist said, look, let's just get the community together and let's make our own park. Let's do something together. And they actually cooperated with the municipality and with developers to create a vision for the future of the park. And it completely, I didn't do that. Well, anyway, it completely changed the relationships in the neighborhood. It empowered the neighborhood to see themselves as contributors, as shapers of the future community. And it built strong relationships of trust between the neighbors and decision makers and even the future developers. In American cities, you see this happening all over, and it's so inspiring. I was up in Buffalo, and again, incredibly wide streets, hardly any cars to take them up, but so very dangerous because those cars are moving at high speeds. This kid is breaking the law in Buffalo. Way to go, you little terrorist. These events just create this sense of empowerment and pure joy. It's wonderful to see. And you know this because you've been doing it yourselves. But while you are doing this, or while some people are doing this, others are gathering data. So in Portland, Oregon, when people bemoaned a lack of community, a lack of connections in a neighborhood called Selwood, they finally just marched out one weekend and said, you know what, that intersection, the city never gave us a public plaza. They never gave us the parks. We're just going to make our own, right? And it's Portland, so you've got some hippy-dippy architecture on the edges and, you know, the bookshare table and Tibetan flags. But every year they go back out to repaint it, and it's a wonderful experience. Meanwhile, one of the people who was involved, he was an epidemiologist, one of the people who had studied the heat deaths in Chicago. So when he got to Portland, he just said, I'm not going to let this moment pass me by without studying the social effects. And he did. And what he found was, wherever this happened in Portland, the movement is called city repair, wherever it happens, it changes the psychology and the psychological health of the neighborhood. So people report that life is getting easier. They know their neighbors more. Crime goes down. They sleep better even. And it's remarkable. So some of these effects are invisible, but the people who are part of them feel them. And that's why I wanted to return to New York City, just to wrap up and tell you what happened on that particular experiment. So remember I mentioned that we forced people to get their picture taken with complete strangers and say something nice about each other. And they did the old friends thing, and they were getting kind of huggy, and we all had a great time. And that's really not the point of that story. We also surveyed people immediately after that experience. If you dropped your wallet or your purse on your way home tonight out in the city, what are the chances you'd get it back if a stranger found it? And the people who had that brief moment of conviviality with a complete stranger were much, much more trusting of everyone else in the city than the people who didn't have that moment. And to me, that's really inspiring. And when you think about it, this is just the kind of change we need if we're going to deal with the challenges of this urban century. Now, I'm not saying you have to go out and start hugging all your neighbors, but we have a mountain of evidence to suggest that action done together matters, that design matters, that every time we have a positive experience face-to-face with other people in the city, that level of trust grows. And we start to build that society where we are able to trust each other more, while we're able to work together more, while we're able to create a culture and a movement of empathy. Now, oh, by the way, you can trust people more. That's what this is saying. Do you want me to talk about that? Yeah. Okay. I was just coming to my final crescendo there. Okay. Look, people don't think they can trust each other. They think there's only a 25% chance they get their wallet back. But in fact, when you scatter wallets around a city, a big, scary city like Toronto, almost all the wallets are returned, and it's really hard to do. So the point is, we can trust each other. We should trust each other. We must trust each other, and we must work together. And the final point is that the happiness economists, the economists have had a change of heart, right? Assure me, one of my mentors, John Halliwell, said, you know, the best thing you can do for your own happiness is work together with other people on a cause that's bigger than yourself. And I look around this room here, and I'm like, well, you guys kind of got that down, don't you? So I commend you on your work together, and I look forward to hearing more of your stories of how you're going to happy up, social up, and I can't do another adjective there, and work for inclusion in Pittsburgh. And thanks for having me. Oh, so apparently there's a couple minutes for questions if you, or advice that I can take back to Vancouver if you have it. No, you just want to get back to, oh, somebody at the very back there?
I have a question. You had two examples of streetscapes. One was organic, you know, the old buildings with the storefronts on the front. You had the one in Vancouver, which was planned with the Home Depot, but you still have the storefronts. Is there a difference in the happiness between those two kinds of developments, organic versus planned?
It's a good question. There's so many factors at play here. So what we know, and if you look at Jan Gel's work, you'll see this as well. He actually has an instruction book for how to test for sociability in street edge environments. So we used his work as a basis. The key is diversity of opportunities per block. So it doesn't matter if it's modern, it doesn't matter if it's planned, it doesn't matter if it's old in terms of pedestrian experience in that regard. But if you were here this morning, you heard Ed McMahon talk about the value of older places, and economic factors come to play. Your older buildings may create more opportunities for small local business, for example. And we know those have a really strong effect on people's sense of belonging in place, not to mention local economy and rolling the money back into the local economy. Yeah.
Charles, throughout your book and obviously the presentation, you do a really interesting job of quantifying what a lot of people aren't studying in the built environment. We're trying to do some of that in Pittsburgh in terms of performance metrics. So I'm wondering if you have an example of places where people are hooking that into zoning codes, into building codes, and if not, if you have any suggestions on how we could incorporate that into some of our work.
Okay, so the question was about where are people actually, other than Pittsburgh, measuring performance and then building it into their codes and systems. And this is the amazing thing. It's kind of a new thing. I mean, through LEED and the WELL standard, people are looking at sustainability and some health factors in buildings, for example. But we're at a point in time where the world is ready for that well-being index or well-being metrics being built into code. In fact, the truth is, if you look at LEED ND, for example, that the New Urbanists cooked up, you're going to get many of the same prescriptions as a new system would suggest. So coming from the perspective of happiness and sociability, it will bring you to many of the same places that we've been talking about for a couple decades. Having said that, the District of West Vancouver is finally doing studies comparing greenhouse gas emissions, public health, traffic on roads, and tax rates, and looking at comparative futures, and using that as their model to choose the greener but also more sociable and a healthier and more efficient future. We're working with a developer in the UK called British Land. They're the biggest REIT in the UK. And again, they're at the cutting edge of sustainability, and they want to build in a well-being metrics. And we've just hesitated with them because they want it to be proprietary. They don't want to share it. So there are ways to do it. There are ways to get there. You're asking different questions, though. You're going to be asking questions about trust in neighbors, sociability, social networks, and this is a real beginning for us. Also, Calthorpe Associates they are doing analytics. Sorry, it's Calthorpe Analytics is doing analytics on a neighborhood and regional scale, but they haven't built the well-being layer into the plan yet. Yes?
You showed 5 points up there in Buffalo. Are you familiar with the work they've done with their zoning code and what went into that? Mike, you know a little bit more about that.
No, I'm not familiar with zoning code or changes in Buffalo.
Okay, they just did a form-based code.
So I'm going to repeat that. Buffalo just did a form-based code, which is changing things. Good to hear. Yes?
We seem to be in the middle of a pretty unhappy presidential race.
Really?
I don't think. Are Democrats intrinsically happier?
Actually, no. No. If you survey Americans on subjective well-being, Republicans tend to report being happier. Yeah. And less affected by status anxieties.
Their candidate seems pretty angry.
Yeah, well, I'm just telling you what the evidence suggests, and this is historical evidence. You really don't want me to talk about American politics, do you? No, come on. As your neighbor, I want you to know we love you, we care about you, and we're really concerned. Yeah, so, sorry. Yes?
Are there particular institutions, say churches, neighborhood associations, that you find in neighborhoods that have an impact on happiness?
Yeah, so even if you're looking all the way back to Putnam's work on bowling alone, church is really good for happiness. It's more important to show up than it is to believe, though. This is, again, from the evidence. I mean, I'm sure many of us believe that belief is super important. But in terms of subjective well-being in the moment, not the afterlife, showing up to church is really important. So we look at, in my own city, they've done, the economists have done studies on subjective well-being, social trust, and they're getting down to the neighborhood level. And the happiest place is also the most trusting or connected place. And it's strange. It's kind of in the middle of nowhere. And if you look for a center point, it's the Jewish Community Center in the dead heart of the city, the dead heart of the suburban part of the city. So it's the networks that institution is creating. So again, I think whatever the institution, whether it's religious or secular, if it's bringing people together in common cause, and this is what you want. But this is what I'm very concerned about the conversion of old church buildings to, say, condos. This has happened a lot in my city. And you're losing a gathering space that was doing more than just providing religious functions. So we should do all we can to preserve those gathering spaces. Yes?
Hi, I'm from a newly formed organization called Rock Project, Bring Up the Best in Keynote. So
Okay.
because my question is, in a situation that we're in, do you build sidewalks to nowhere, or do you bring businesses in first?
The question was, in Penn Hills, do you build sidewalks to nowhere, or do you bring businesses in first? The answer is necessarily a discussion about system dynamics in cities, and the question is, why are people, vulnerable people, who may not own cars, being pushed out to the exurban edges? And you know your history of racism, of classism, of highway infrastructure, of redlining, and you know how to turn it around. And the solution may actually not be in Penn Hills. So the solution may be closer in. Great. Thank you. You guys can duke it out. There's two of you.
So you mentioned in one of the things was zone for happiness. And other than sort of storefront perforations and creating variety on the street, what other zoning techniques do you see?
Okay. So the question was zone for happiness. What other zoning techniques we could use? One has been mentioned. Form-based code has proven really effective in turning some places around, including that the TOD corridor in Arlington. You have to understand, I come from a radically different environment where there's such pressure on land. And so in my city, you don't get density. You don't get it without providing a community amenity bonus. So that is usually 20% social housing. It's also public space. It may also be daycares. It may also be street improvements. So in Vancouver, actually, we have or had until recently, quite a lot of discretionary power at the planner level. And it was very effective. We're having some problems right now. But so that's another tool, is to educate and then empower and trust your planners to be doing the right thing. Because as we know, when things get left to the politicians, when politicians are saddled with making specific land use decisions, beyond broad policy, things get very messy very soon. Two ideas. Yes?
Charles, you talk about walking being a great indicator for health. Can you talk a little bit about biking as well, please?
Thank you. So I cut all the biking out. I just figured we all know it now, so let's just get on with it. Okay, so studies on commute experience show that people who bike, but this applies to walking too, but this one particular study, people who bike to work experience or express more joy and less fear, rage, and sadness than any other commuter. And to me, this is the remarkable thing. We see these study results all over the world. People who bike are the happiest with their journeys. It's also true in the States. So what is going on here? At Pittsburgh, you're waving the flag and saying, yeah, we're up to 2%, is it? And to me, it's so sad. The fact that people aren't biking here means that you haven't yet provided the connected network of infrastructure. And by that, I mean safe, separated bike lanes. Because we know that 60% of people in most cities say they want to try biking to get around the city. They really want to. But only 5 to 6% of people, they're called kamikazes, are are willing to do it on the infrastructure that's out there. So how sad is that our cities are still stealing freedom and joy and good health from people? But you already know this, is why you asked the question. Thanks. This will probably be last, right, Ernie? Okay.
So just going back to the biking, what does weather have to do with that? Like, how does that play into it?
Oh, yeah.
2 days ago.
Yeah, in winter cities, just forget it. No one's going to bike. Yeah. Look, that was sarcasm. I'm from Canada, and we had this debate in Canadian cities. And a city like Edmonton, it's like, well, you know, nobody's going to bike. Why would we have separated bike lanes? They're impossible to clear in the winter. Well, Montreal has cracked that code. It's obvious. You build the infrastructure in a way that makes it easy to clear, and when you do, people bike. Copenhagen gets snowstorms too, and they're at something like 40% mode share. So it's about having the infrastructure. It's about also, when I say not being scared of snow, I'm not talking about the cyclist. I'm talking about your engineers, the people who clear the snow. Right? There's plenty of room on your roads to pile the snow. So I'm saying it can happen. People do it. You just need the infrastructure, and you need a civic government and engineers and staff who care enough to keep those spaces open. And people will do it. Thanks.
So that's going to conclude this part of the summit, and I want to do a couple thank yous. One, I want to acknowledge all the hotel staff for all their service and help. It's by choice that we do this in a Union hotel. We believe in that, and it's important. So don't forget tonight, the awards reception is this evening at 5, and there are several really wonderful people being acknowledged tonight. And it's also a chance for you to continue the conversations that you've been building throughout. Hopefully you've all made new friends. The challenge is that I hope that you walk away with cards for at least 5 people that you've never met before that are going to help you do something pretty amazing in your community. I also, once again, just want to thank our sponsors for making this happen. I want to give an acknowledgement to both KeyBank, who is new to our market and is a sponsor this year, and I'm looking forward to doing business with them as they transition this fall into our first Niagara network. And I also wanted to thank many of the others that have played a role in our making this a possibility. So with that, I'm going to let you guys go and socialize. And don't forget to check out the vendors in the exhibitor hall. We will be breaking that down. Coffee will be moved out to the hallways so that your caffeine fix can continue. And go and learn and prosper. Thank you.